3, 2, 1.
Hello, pleasure seekers. Welcome to Never Had the Pleasure.
We are back after a bit of a fall, winter hibernation. We just recorded our first new episode back, but we had one in the can that was a bit of a problem shoot.
Hopefully we've made some strides with the video and the audio, but it's still a fascinating conversation.
But now, let's take it back to everyone's favorite time in recent memory, spring 2020. We give you Risky Business.
This discussion has been digitally remastered and will take you inside this iconic film as never before.
Hey YouTubers!
Hi YouTubers!
Welcome to Never Had the Pleasure. We're here to check something out that we've never seen before. This week we're doing
Risky Business,
from 1982.
the film that made Tom Cruise a star.
We're gonna go over our expectations right now, and later we'll be back to unpack everything that we experienced.
Took in stars old Tommy Boy Cruise.
Well, it's really big news. We got Tom Cruise.
That'd be fun if he was credited as Tommy Cruise or
Oh,
Thomas Cruise.
Thomas. Well, part of the deal with the pre-sesh is we just have our existing knowledge of and context around the movie.
It's one of those movies where everybody's seen that one scene parodied in commercials on award shows, and that's like all anybody knows about the movie.
It seems like it's got this iconic scene with this high wattage star that threw everything else about the movie into shadow.
We're hunting for these kinds of movies where maybe the movie doesn't have as much relevance nowadays, but like it was popular and like well regarded at the time.
The dream is to find a hidden gem and some moments of note beyond just the really bare bones knowledge that the public seems to carry for something like this.
One of the things that interested me in watching this is I don't really know very much about Tom Cruise's origins. This isn't his debut, is it?
Pretty close.
He's like a high school student.
Yeah,
movie, right?
he plays a high school student. He looks young.
Probably around the time that he did The Outsiders.
And I know he did a movie where he played like a football star.
I'm gonna swing by the video store. I was thinking Tom Cruise and all the right moves. You know, if you pause it just right, you can see his penis.
This is the movie that you could most directly credit for like catapulting him into superstardom. It'll be interesting to see a different, maybe more natural acting style from him. How much his charisma shows through when he's not having to be Tom Cruise.
He doesn't have the baggage of
like,
being the movie star that he is now.
That
or
like
was.
he's definitely still a movie
Yeah.
star, but it's complicated. We both have pretty sort of conflicted opinions on Tom
Saying
Cruise.
in the name of Leah Remini, where is Shaq?
Yeah,
His personal life and his social and religious life. Religious being
more of a tax term.
So
So we don't
cool.
need to get into
Yeah.
Have you met an SP?
Do you know anything about the...
like plot.
Yeah.
He's like a high school kid and he may or may not run a business. Maybe his dad wants him to get into the family business.
Oh, but it isn't
I want to make
risky
my own
enough.
path. Like a coming of age film.
An 80s coming of age film. His parents would be like prime me generation.
Green is good.
Expectations of success, especially like if he comes from wealth. I know he comes, or at least lives in like a mansion basely.
Pretty big house when he dances around in it. He got stairs and everything.
I know his mom has a very expensive egg.
Huh? Like a Fabergé egg?
I don't think like that expensive.
I don't like it. I don't like
No,
eggs.
I think like
Just, like sing to it.
like he does or his mom.
Like during the scene.
Maybe.
Great green globs couldn't possibly be sweeter than a pile of eggs.
Do you know anything about the female lead?
No.
Does the name Rebecca De Mornay mean
Sounds
anything
like
to
a
you?
soap opera character.
Yeah, it does.
This is Elizabeth Corday.
Pleasure.
Don't know who this person is.
Would it shock you to learn that she is a high-end sex worker, escortress?
Maybe that's the risky business in the title.
Yeah, and
Oh,
he gets
that's-
like wrapped up in it in some way. I'm guessing he doesn't go into sex work himself.
No, I think he's friends with her. And they want to make it romantic. But he's like, how do I date a sex worker?
In 1982, maybe she like goes to school with him, and it's like a girl next door
Or
scenario.
he meets her at a party.
But other than that, she was in this movie. I don't know what her continued.
Do you know anyone else in the
relevance.
cast? Anyone of
No.
note?
I don't think.
It's an intimate character piece between two lovers, like the film Two Lovers. Do you know who directed this?
I think his name's like Brian Brickwood, but that just sounds like a porn name.
Do you know if he like did
I
other
don't
things?
think he did basically anything else. I don't know where the director came from. I don't really know where he went, except that he went out of Hollywood.
Maybe he became a porn star.
Yeah, maybe he lived up to his name and went into another risky business.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that risky.
Probably back then.
This movie was made at a time we're sort of getting into like that high 80s aesthetic, which is typified by
Ray-Bans,
yeah, he's got like the iconic 80s Ray-Bans. It's a time when risky men felt like they could wear a pink shirt for the first time when their parents are away. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some like great fetishistic like car shots that the 80s tends to have, and the kind of like, I feel like sunsets are very 80s.
Yeah, like really vibrant colors.
Yeah, hopefully we get some of that look.
And
I mean,
blazers.
And gray blazers. He lives in like a pretty wealthy neighborhood, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how they incorporate that kind of look.
Could be like a dichotomy, like between where he grew up and where she is. I was gonna say Lady and the Tramp, but I don't want to call her the Tramp.
I mean, I think like the context, the frameworks.
We're figuring this out. I'm hoping for a good soundtrack.
It's probably got a pretty bumpin' soundtrack, yeah.
I mean, it's got the song from the scene.
Yeah, that's true. It's not like a real like strip tease, but it's like kind of like a fun light strip tease.
It's cheeky.
Yeah, it's very like Roadhouse rock vibe, like barn
rock.
Listen to me. Anyways, he dances around with some old time rock and roll because that's what all the ladies wanted Tom Cruise dancing to in 1982.
Maybe it like makes it cooler for the guy.
He's everywhere you want to
I would do that.
I'd actually, as a kid, danced to that song.
I don't have a ton of detail on the soundtrack cuts, but the score is one of my all-time favorites. One of the songs on it, Love on a Real Train, is my favorite song title.
So there's a train.
I think it's very evocative.
There's a train in this movie.
Trains, planes, and automobiles. We know we've got at least one of the three.
Picturing some cars. On the VHS, Tom Cruise has like a sunglass. He's like...
You look just like him.
Picture him doing that in a car. Maybe like a blazer on. I don't know if high schoolers in the 80s wore blazers, but that's what I'm picturing.
I know he's got like a Leatherman jacket.
Yeah. So he's an athlete. Okay.
Tom Cruise in 1982 playing a high school jock.
He looks good.
I probably know more about the score than I do about the movie. It's by Tangerine Dream, and it's a sort of like hypnotic, a lot of pads, arpeggiated chords, classic 80s synth sound, but like on the more melancholy side. That obviously signals to me that there's more than one emotional side to this. The scene everybody knows is very,
not just like
my parents are away.
It's not just like a goofy high school movie.
Yeah, if it's trying to be just a goofy high school movie, they picked a weird score. It basically can't just be a tonal mismatch, which is good. Tom Cruise always has a scene where he's running. What do you think is going to be in this?
Maybe he needs to tell Rebecca De Mornay some sort of information. It's pressing. He's got to get to her. Like, don't leave, Rebecca.
And he doesn't take his cool shades.
He's got the shades, but he drops them. And the car's stalled out or something. So he has to like run through downtown, wherever. Maybe like over a bridge. Maybe get to her.
Yeah, the car is at a train crossing
across the track.
Well, I said, all right, I'm going to apply the yes and theory.
And that's where the train comes in.
He has to catch up with the train.
Oh.
And then he gets on a train.
And then they
said, wherever
you
go,
on a real train,
I'll go. And that's our business. None of your business. And then the message is, love
is
maybe risky business, but you gotta take the risk.
Is love the risky business?
Thinking risky
or
business.
Is it sex work?
Yeah, I'm thinking risky business is gonna be an overall theme here. People are going to make decisions which impact their lives.
Oh, this film is playing around with ideas of causality. Very conceptual.
The movie really makes you think about life and reality and love and intimacy and where you're going with what.
Well,
let's crack open Tom Cruise's mom's crystal egg.
Peep over our Ray-Bans and see what's inside.
See what kind of ooey goo we get.
Crack them open.
By which we mean to say, we're going to watch the movie now, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
His name is Tommy, and he's my boyfriend. And soon that chair he'll sit upon, and I'll sniff it when he's gone. I took a shower twice an hour. I'm in a really happy mood. I'm picturing him nude. Of Tom I am fond. We have a real close bond. When this show's done, I might take him to Bed Bath and Beyond. Someone call me, 'cause here comes Tommy. This guy is hotter than pastrami. And when he shows up, hope I don't throw up. I'll try to be gentle and not act so mental for my Tommy. 'Cause I'm in love.
Have we started?
We're sponsored.
Yeah, we're sponsored by Coke.
We caught the big one.
The big account. We're back. We've downloaded Risky Business into our brains. Am I right?
That's a good Matrix sound.
I'll be in number 4. Okay, so we're here to talk about Risky Business.
Yeah, we promised we'd keep this one tight.
Great start. Did you like it?
Yes.
I think it was really well shot.
Yeah.
And scripted.
Yeah.
And acted.
Yeah, those are the big 3.
I liked it, but I kind of found it slight. Maybe interestingly so. It's a funny movie to me because the stakes for most of it are pretty low. He still kind of ended up in the place he had coming to him if none of this had happened. To me, he didn't have that much depth in our watch. He's just trying to do what his dad wants. The stakes in this movie are they kind of get bigger than this, but is he going to be a disappointment to his parents?
But I think that's on par with a lot of romantic comedies, which this at least nominally is, right? The stakes in most romantic comedies are just that they don't end up together at the end.
But it's interesting for a coming of age
and her
movie.
cupcake store closes or whatever. What are they doing in romantic comedies now?
Now
they were running dog stores for a while.
Now they're meta. They've caught up with horror movies and action movies of the 90s.
He's not a very active protagonist. Lana is the one that instigates and steers all of the action in the movie. It kind of makes sense that he just kind of gets spit out the other side of this adventure, and he's grown up a little, but his core trajectory hasn't necessarily changed that much. We're using a bunch of words that maybe sound kind of critical, calling it a little, did you say slender? Slight and ambiguous, passive protagonist. These are things that aren't usually treated as positives, but I tend to like all those things. It picked character attributes that it wanted to develop really smartly, kept them pretty honed. This is something we complained about with Hannibal, that it doesn't have any thematic cohesion, which this movie has in spades. It's about risk and business and trust. I guess that's kind of the gist of it, right? It's not even really about love or sex. It involves those things. Interestingly, there is no scene where either of them confesses their love to the other one.
As I predicted.
Yeah. No one gives anybody else a monologue about
I grew up here, and I appreciated how it dealt with privilege.
Goes to that burger joint for dinner with his friends.
I mean, doesn't anyone want to accomplish anything, or do we just want to make money?
Just make money.
Yeah.
What about you, Joel?
Serve my fellow mankind.
Get out of here.
This little sly smile creeps onto his face. Was it a joke the whole time, or did it turn into a joke?
And just playing along with what they would. Yeah.
He's pretty guileless. at the beginning.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
He keeps leaving call girls alone in his house.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise plays it really well. He is convincingly naive and innocent, and then more of a hustler.
And his
by
like
the
backs
end.
up against the wall.
Yeah. The scene where his situation is most dire and that spurs on the biggest growth in his character, he is, I think, like very effective. And when you take him down to just like attributes or character traits, he's not the most interesting character, but interesting to watch. I'd say that Lana is definitely the more interesting character.
You're right. He's so passive. How he eventually makes the money to pay for fixing the car. The idea is Lana's.
If we ever got our friends together, we'd make a fortune. You want to do that?
What?
Get our friends together next couple of days.
To a certain extent, you're supposed to kind of question how much Lana was kind of playing him.
Yeah, we know
depending on how you look at things.
Yeah, it was at least partly engineered to exploit him. We just don't know if it was entirely.
The only reason he's getting any money is just he's the connection to all these kids from like the right side of the lake, right? Yeah. It's not even that he's like going along with this idea to like make money to pay for his college or something. It's just to make money to get
him back to square one.
Yeah.
And she's hustling to elevate her quality of life or her opportunities set, right?
Yeah. So I would totally agree Lana's the more interesting character, but it's kind of funny that it's, you know, nominally like his coming of age film, right?
We get his voiceover. He's not always seeing things the way that you are as the viewer, but it's not quite the same as being like an unreliable narrator.
We may bury our treasure. Lana did production. I concentrated on sales.
He does think of it as like a thing that he made happen, like with her, of course, but like it's like his big risk and his big move.
That's a good point, and I guess that's maybe why I wasn't so sure what the intention of the like writer and director was. Like, does he know that Lana's in control here?
I think so. Like I read, he like J.D. Salinger out of Hollywood after this movie, basically. And that is the analogy that he uses in the interview. So I guess he thinks pretty highly of himself. So he was like not on record about this for a long time. But yeah, he did an interview in 2016, and it definitely does seem like the movie successfully executed like the vision that he had. The movie as a whole is almost kind of a metaphor for the relationship between a call girl and her John. To him, it's his story, but she's the one that's actually tasked with engineering the situation. And I think like when we sort of go through the beats, thought on her feet a couple times to like exploit the situation. I guess I'm a gullible John because I don't think it was entirely that.
It's funny though. I don't know how much she like likes him as like a person. I think
there are moments
she likes
where she's charmed by him.
Yeah, I think she likes seeing him kind of grow up.
Kind of like learn to take risks and become a bit of a hustler.
Look at it this way. You're making some good money. You're providing your friends an invaluable service. I mean, God knows I needed the service.
Both in the performance and in the design of the character, she plays her emotions so close to her chest that maybe you're not supposed to be sure.
And you got a girlfriend to boot.
Do I?
Phone call for Joel. What do you think?
I don't know. You tell me. Yes, no, maybe.
Yes. No. Maybe.
I appreciated the kind of like nuance.
Yeah, I mean, it's a movie that has those things on its mind, and like you said, does it with like a deft touch. Yeah, this is gonna be a different episode because
it's not like a couple little jokes.
It's not something where we're gonna go through the movie and like pick out like goofy line readings or anything. Like Jim Carrey thing.
I don't think it's really that much of a comedy.
I think it's got like the kind of funny banter between buddies that like They have on like Stranger Things, but like for older kids.
Okay, yeah.
I hear the list is longer than my wang.
Kind of like 80s shit talking, guy talk.
I think you got the hell out of there, ran home and whacked off.
But like Lana's not really a comedically written character.
No.
Guido, I guess, I think is more treading that line.
She gets some comedic moments when Joel is acting naive around her, and it's so clear that like she's in the real world and he's just like a naive kid.
Joel, go to school, go learn something.
The plotting of it reminded me in a weird way of like something like Superbad. This kid who's out of his league and he gets into this like crazy situation and he gets into like a car chase, somebody pulls a gun, his house turns into like a brothel for a night. Like that's what happens, but it
doesn't have that tone.
The movie has so much more on its mind than just being like that movie.
It's like wearing the clothes of a comedy. Do you remember the days of Netflix where you would get categories that were like 90s procedural dramas with strong female leads?
Yeah.
Netflix, in a way, I guess, kind of by like making genre that granular, nulled the whole idea of it, maybe in a way. But like back in the days of Blockbuster, like this was on the comedy rack, right? That's where it should be. Like, where else would you put it?
It's a romance, but like maybe ultimately isn't all that romantic.
It was great the way her mind worked. No guilt, no doubts, no fear.
Pretty good, huh?
None of my specialties.
Check that out.
Just this shameless pursuit of immediate material gratification. What a capitalist.
I thought it was just the right amount of romantic.
Yeah, but like...
But not enough to be a romance.
Watching the movie, yes, it's like you're experiencing like romance. But like just like with a like skilled call girl in real life, like how much of it is there's like a kind of subtle Mandela effect type thing going on with this movie where like because of the dancing and the it's thought of as like the kind of movie that scene belongs to, when like really that scene is like an outlier. Ultimately it's not really very effective at being that kind of movie because it's not really trying to be. But it is kind of like wearing, it's like a little bit of like a wolf in sheep's clothing in a way, because like it does have the trappings of that kind of movie. Like the poster is like more fitting that kind of movie, and it's thought of as one thing, but in actuality has like a total...
There's more to it.
Yeah, that's the exact kind of movie I think that we're like trying to find. We're also just trying to find fun stuff to talk about. Shall we break it down? Shall we break it down, Sean? Do we open up on some Ray-Bans right away?
We meet Joel Goodson. Names a little on the nose.
Yeah. Tom Cruise is recounting this sexy dream. It's a sexy dream, so he's got sexy thoughts.
Yes.
But he's also like nervous about his future because in the dream he's late for a test.
Yeah. So right away we get what's on his mind: sex or lack thereof, getting into school, getting into trouble.
Teenagers. So his parents are heading out of town.
Yeah.
We get some like first person shots of him about the house, talking to them about...
Yeah, a lot of the shots with his parents are POV.
He nails the feeling of like overbearing parents and...
Yeah, without making them outright villainous. You're not supposed to like them very much, but they're realistically a drag. I just wanted to say, like, when they're out driving the Porsche, like, dude, if your dad checks the EQ on the stereo, he checks the odometer. It's just a tip, Joel. We get the egg. The core metaphor of the egg is established.
The people's choice award. Then they're in the car to the airport, and then, like, once they leave, we get the reverse shot of Tom Cruise. So he's got the house to himself, and
it's time for some old-time rock and roll.
First, he like takes out like a frozen Hungry Man dinner. Was this like a bit that he was doing?
I think we were just like meant to believe that he was so incompetent at cooking for himself that he he forgot what food was.
It was like a popsicle.
That's the kind of like the sort of like visual gag that's, I feel like, throwing the audience a bit of a bone, knowing that like people are coming in with the expectation of like that kind of comedy.
I thought he was doing a bit.
Yeah. Like for himself.
And then he's doing his thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything to say about that? He does the splits.
Oh, did he? Like front back or like Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Like front back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a ton to say about that. I feel like it's been covered. He dances around to a song.
Yep. Oh, Miles has like a sex classifieds.
Yeah.
What do you call that?
We go
like
undercover at a sex farm for sex hookers.
Yeah, so he calls Jackie, right?
And sounds like a teenager making a prank call. So it's a little surprising hours later when the escort shows up. Jackie is a female presenting escort who is not what Joel would probably have in mind. Yeah, it was very refreshing to have a movie like that came out in 82 that has like a black female presenting, whether she's like trans or like, first of all, that like it doesn't define and label that, and also that she's not like, the situation is comedic because like
he was expecting one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The film doesn't make her the joke.
They just kind of come to terms and go their separate ways. Yeah. And Jackie gives Joel Lana's number. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a nice little foreshadowing that Lana's kind of like building out her network. She's a bit of a businesswoman. Is it just later that night that he calls Lana? He's like crouching in a corner of his room
on like a beanbag,
probably embarrassed and like needs to kind of like recover his momentum by calling Lana and saying the classic line,
"I'm a nice guy and I'd like to meet you tonight."
And he does. This sex worker Lana comes over and they have a very like dramatic sex encounter.
It's a lot. Yeah, more extra than like Red Shoe Diaries. Like Red Shoe Diaries would have toned it back a bit.
But when she surrenders her will to a second secret lover, 2 fuses of erotic TNT are set to go off just like that.
Lana's stayed the night, and it's time to pay up. Gets on over there to cash in on a bond. But while he's doing that, she steals the People's Choice.
Gleeps his egg.
Gleep! Someone who steals.
Guys, Arthur's great, and it like really holds up.
Joel and Miles head off to a hotel the next night because Joel just like figures that's where she'll be.
Jackie tells him, which doesn't seem super plausible.
Makes eyes with Lana as she's meeting with some John. And then as Joel is leaving, because like that's basically all he can do. Just tell her that he's there.
Joel arrives at a scene, has no power. Basically, all he's able to do is like say, hey, and then he thinks he's leaving until like somebody else comes in and commandeers the situation. And this, I think, supports that like he is a passive protagonist by design and on purpose. He never has any leverage, he never has any power, and he never really like effectively shapes anyone else's actions other than like the other kids that are from his neighborhood. Jank.
The one smart thing I think he does is like she gets in the car.
Yeah.
The manager comes up and he's like, am I going to get my egg back?
Yep.
And he like really pushes
Yeah,
that.
it's like the first time we see that Joel might be able to hold his own.
And we get a little bit of a car chase.
He's in the risky business now.
Lana stays the night again. Joel needs to head off to school.
And he tells her to leave, and she doesn't. Basically, she stalls for time until he has to go or he'll miss a midterm.
We get our running scene.
Yeah, we get the first running scene.
Didn't quite pan out as we predicted.
The next running scene is significantly closer.
What's the next one?
We'll get to it.
So Joel's at school. He's kind of watching the clock all day, waiting for school to be out. Heads home, and Lana's invited over a friend, Vicky, and Guido comes by.
Yeah.
How did he find out where they are?
This leads to something I was going to mention, which is that we get some kind of like low-key, effective suspense or mystery building while Joel's at school. This is the major scene that I noted that he's not in. We see Lana, she's driven the Porsche to the train station. We don't know why, and it sort of like leaves you hanging for a little bit while he's at school. Like, she's working on something. I think Rebecca De Mornay does a great job. And part of what would make this role hard is like not slipping into villainy.
What if I said I'd be your girlfriend next couple of days? No charge.
Because her actions are so ambiguous, like in terms of her motivation and the morality behind them.
Yeah, she never like gives a look to the camera. Anna's invited Vicky over. Joel already didn't want her at the house.
Now she's brought a friend.
He's accepted the fact that these women are here, and
yeah, and he just keeps saying like, it's got to be just tonight, and then you gotta leave. Yeah. One of the better examples of something that happens like many times over the course of the movie, people verbally agree with him and then do whatever the hell they want.
He's trying to study late at night, listens to some Springsteen, much like a certain good wife.
Niche.
Probably cut that out. And Lana comes up.
Let's go for ice cream.
Let's go for ice cream and get wasted. Seth Rogen's back. Joel has parked his Porsche on a hill towards a lake.
Yeah, I guess like that's the kind of oversight that like a teenage new driver who is high would very plausibly make. Oh, spoiler alert, the car goes in the lake.
I got very nervous. I was like, because this is like... Really,
you don't want to lose the Porsche in the lake.
Yeah, this is really when he gets fucked.
Yeah.
Who wants to welcome
for the first time.
Cut to next morning, fish flopping out of the Porsche.
Mm-hmm. It's ruined.
Nice little comedy beat. The Porsche is, in fact...
Sean was laughing. Those fish.
I love a flopping fish. That singing bass. Better than Lance Bass. The best singing bass. So yeah, the car is, in fact, ruined. But this movie is like just enough of a fantasy that this Porsche could be repaired.
And to the extent that his dad wouldn't notice anything.
Yeah. For however much sort of like ulterior motive and stuff going on under the hood it has, this movie exploits well the reality that it is like a high school coming of age movie when it's expedient to do so.
Joel's dealing with this. Meanwhile, he's missing some midterms.
And he has a run-in with quite a nurse. Major Patty and Selma vibes.
Yeah.
At the DMV.
Interesting choice to just not speak.
It's like, another power move. He has no leverage.
Gets aggressive.
He does get aggressive.
I guess
just in a very small way, he does cross that line.
He does.
Like she's a middle-aged lady.
How the movie treats it, it's this like short, because like Tom Cruise is a short kid.
Yeah, like he's outgunned.
He's just like pathetic in this moment.
Yeah, his college application is fucked. Probably the most like emotional scene in the movie.
Oh yeah. It's just like his life spiraling, and
his life spiraling, and
he's off to this woman.
Tom Cruise is doing some really good physical acting, and we get his second run. It's a hybrid bike run, stair climb. Piece de resistance is his emotionally exasperated running up the stairs. He likes to communicate through run. He's an interpretive runner, and I guess the elevator must have been broken, because Lana lives like 20 stories up. We get very few like concrete insights into Lana's life. A big part of being a high-end escort is presenting a version of yourself that's pretty walled off and cultivated. And I don't know if it's this scene or another, but there is a picture of her with her brother, so like we know that she didn't make that up. They're in like a downtown, a kind of like rougher. We get a lot of shots of like Joel as a child, and they're all like studio lit, very fitting for like his life. We get a sort of a little motherly I think like it's easy to like project the motherly tone onto it because Joel is such
so short.
I was gonna say
like a little baby boy.
It's funny that like his being short like doesn't matter as much because he's in high school and like maybe he's not like maybe he just hasn't had his growth spurt yet. No, not just because he's so short. Also because he's like emotionally like cratered out and is like super vulnerable, and it sort of like forces her into that mode a little bit. This movie is like pretty smart, especially for the early 80s, and its understanding of some of the nuances of sex work, that like it is often as much about that like girlfriend experience and the emotional comfort elements. Anyways, yeah, we get a couple brief scenes, Joel sort of like hustling his friends into the deal, makes his different arguments. To Joel's credit, I guess, he leans into it. He really goes for it.
Yeah, he does it. Yeah, I mean, it's a big success. We see some footage of him like recruiting.
Yeah, and
kids.
he's like he's a good salesman.
Yeah.
Furthering, I guess, the idea that like they are actually pretty well matched, like as business partners. And then it's the big night.
There is, in fact, a business.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a Kane from Citizen Kane situation.
Or where there's no Kane.
Exactly.
And there's the Kane from Citizen Kane. Wait a minute. There was no Kane in Citizen Kane.
Wrong.
It's for the friends meeting friends. On paper, like it seems so normative, right? Like it seems so coupley that they're having a big house party to introduce their friends to each other. But that's not what's going on. Yeah, and it's just like a flurry of activity, people coming and going. And by people, I mean both very fully adult women and
like kids from the neighborhood.
Men who range from early college aged down to like 13-ish.
Yeah,
it's a movie. We know they're not actually having sex. But just casting, take note. In the thick of all this, who should arrive?
It's Friday night. Goes off into a private room with the Princeton guy for their interview.
You can kind of tell that they're like both phoning it in, but
like as people keep knocking, just being like, I can't just like ignore what's happening here.
But that knocking, she's like signaling to the Princeton guy so he doesn't think it's just this like wild house party, like by wheeling in a bed and saying like, we need this room. She's dropping hints as to what's really going on, and I think kind of like tacitly offering carte blanche to this guy.
I just like read it as her trying to tell Joel like, what are you doing, bud? Like, you know, this isn't happening, like might as well make some money here. And
yeah, I guess like she's like kind of poking the situation.
Yeah,
and he gets it too. Like by the end of the conversation, he's just like basically literally like, fuck it.
Yeah, the whole
and then we get quite
what the fuck thing.
We get quite a face.
Yeah, this was. Has this been memed? Like a Jim Carrey thing.
Yeah,
so weird. Flashes of Scientology.
Yeah, a harbinger of things to come.
He's basically like, "What the fuck? I'm not getting into Princeton. YOLO."
Yeah, he's on the YOLO train.
And then he goes to play with some trains.
Oh yeah, but toy trains aren't good enough for Lana.
Lana was hungry. She wanted to go out for a bite. She wanted to make love on a real train.
And they do.
This movie, it does have this sort of like hypnotic mode that it goes into sometimes. I think some of its most effective moments, it's kind of like sex scene as set piece in a way that is
like once I actually go
kind of cool
to the train. Over the course of them playing that Phil Collins song.
Yeah, 2 songs. We got like basically that full Phil Collins song and then the Love on a Real Train. There really was a window in time where in the 80s where there was this kind of like high romanticism, this very sensual leaning in some of the filmmaking, greatly helped by the score. And I don't know how to end talking about this sex scene except to say that, like, it's very sensual and they are exploring each other's bodies.
All right, so that's their evening.
Yeah.
It's the next morning. Porsche's fixed.
Yeah. good as new.
He got the money.
It just took $8,000.
Yeah, it took $8,000.
Completely overhaul.
Part of a morning.
Yeah. Whatever.
Right, we'll massage it.
Where did he sleep that night? I guess at Lana's, right?
I guess so.
He has to stay there because the house is looted overnight, right?
Well, we're getting to that.
For the third time in the movie, he has left strangers in his house.
Yeah. Lots of strangers.
Yeah, in this case, like, yeah, every time he leaves more strangers in his house. And every time they steal something.
Been looted.
I noticed on review. Yeah, it's been gleeped. The whole joint's been gleeped. Gleeped in his sleep.
Arthur stole my cellular phone.
What? Why would I? I did not.
Did too, Arthur. Everybody knows you're the biggest gleeper in school.
Gleeping, sleeping. Oh, yeah, I noticed, like, on review, when he is at the house in the morning and he's, like, counting his money as he walks in the door, he's whistling the Phil Collins song. So what's the...
He calls Lana's number because I guess thinking she was behind this. And Guido picks up and...
Discipline Daddy.
Oh.
There's a new daddy in town. A disciplined daddy.
And Joel, as always, is a little sub bitch.
But Guido says, like, I like you, kid. I'll come on by and give you the furniture.
Teach Joel a little lesson on the market.
And make some money. Gets all the furniture back. Yep. Guess all the money's gone.
Yeah, I mean, Guido...
Other than what he spent on the Porsche.
Yeah.
So...
the money is fuzzy.
Yeah. Put everything back in place right on time.
Except for one fatal flaw.
The egg! Oh my god!
At the core of the egg, which is at the core of everything. There's a small but perceptible flaw.
The egg's cracked.
That People's Choice Award gone unbusted.
In the scope of, like, what he had been through.
Yeah.
It's, like, whatever. But, like,
a mood
shakes
her to her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joel, can I talk to you for a minute? There's a crack in it.
You're kidding.
No, Joel, I'm not kidding. There is a crack in the egg. A small crack inside the egg. How could you let this happen? I'm sorry. I am very disappointed in you.
I'm sorry. I'm very disappointed in you. Like, she's sorry that she has to be this disappointed.
That just makes him feel even worse.
He doesn't really care.
Yeah. He's in the backyard with the Ray-Bans on.
I'm going to say he is at his least cool when he's wearing the Ray-Bans.
It looks more like a kid trying to be cool.
Yeah.
Than someone who's...
A little coda. It's kind of like maybe a few months later, Joel got into Princeton thanks to solicitation of his intake counselor dude.
He asks her basically, like, did you set me up?
Yeah, we got a classic Lana. Like, yes, no, maybe.
No.
No. You don't believe me, do you?
It doesn't necessarily mean
that she's, like, thinking.
Yeah, that she's thinking about how to answer to, like,
convince him.
It could just be
like, you still don't believe me.
Yeah. People like to talk about movies where the ending is ambiguous, like that actually ever works. I can't think of that many movies where at the end you're, like, legitimately unsure if the ghosts are real or not. But this movie, I think, pulled it off. Like, at the end, you're really not sure how much her feelings for him are real, how much the connection that they forged is going to hold.
So that's the movie.
Yeah.
I liked it. It's one of those movies that kind of pulls a bit of a trick on you.
I'd say it would reward a second viewing. I could definitely see it appreciating.
It's a shame it seems that this director kind of like disappeared.
I tried to find some details about what his original ending was, and it was just like so vague that it seemed basically like the same ending, just like a more pessimistic tone.
To me, it seems like the most emotional endings to movies tend to be the bittersweet ones. This one will like hit that note pretty perfectly.
Just don't want you to get hurt.
My name is Yvonne Williams. We made a profit of $500 last semester.
Guess we won't be seeing each other for a while.
I know.
And it sounds like his preferred ending would have been more like on a cynical bent. Those endings, they might be better at like making a point, but they don't tend to have an emotional resonance.
Yeah.
I got the ending that I wanted. It sucks to be Paul.
And that's the risky business of Hollywood.
I mean, there are people who just kind of like take their success.
Yeah, and this
live
was
a
like
nice life off its back, right? Like,
yeah.
Hopefully he just did that.
All right.
Yeah, that's a wrap on risky business. This was a little bit more of like a serious vibe.
Yeah, but it was
about as serious as we're probably gonna get.
Bit of a different episode. Not as many goofy clips on the green screen.
Yeah. So I guess like let us know how that worked for you. This is still a brand new channel, so we love the goofier ones, but we're also both like pretty serious fun buffs. So
definitely wanted to make sure that we try our hand at, I guess, looking more seriously at a movie. Also, hopefully, like putting a spotlight on something like this, right? Maybe this inspired you to watch along with us.
That'd be great. If it did, let us know.
And we'll be back shortly with another hit.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Subscribe and we'll see you on YouTube.
That's a giant crystal egg. Get a life, lady. Cheeky.
We get to see for the first time, I'm pretty sure, his armpit!